out last year, and Tales of the Abyss came out before it came to the States. Jealous. That the Tales series has been revived a bit, and Symphonia isn't people's first Tales anymore, so I thought that maybe I would reintroduce the series to people who hadn't heard about it before. So, I need my script. Alright, let's see if this works. Okay, so I thought first of all, the series has been going on for a long time. It's 17 years in total now. It's 15 years in the West. Exilia, which came out last week, was our 15th anniversary game. And it was also Japan's 15th anniversary game 2 years ago. So it's been around for quite a while. Did it begin? Actually, ignore that. It's not 1996. It was 1995. So it first came out in 1995 with Tales of Fantasia, which came out on the Super Nintendo. And even back then, the series had something that, you could tell it was different. So, and even then it had the staples that started, which I will get to later. One thing that confused people, it's the same series, there are tons of games, but only a couple of them actually take place in the same world. You won't see many of the characters cross over normally. And obviously there's some that are like Tales of Destiny, Tales of Destiny 2, they're connected, they're in the same world. But normally they're not. It's like Final Fantasy in that respect. And speaking of Final Fantasy, okay, not Symphonia, Tales along with Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest are part of Japan's big three of RPG series, so that's another thing where I'm kind of like, why don't people know the Tales series? It's so big in Japan. I mean, everyone knows Final Fantasy. Okay, and another thing that the series is really well known for, this is a screenshot from Tales of Hearts, is the battle system, which is called the linear motion battle system, which always shows up in a different form in every game. And basically what sets it apart, it's real time, so if you'll have your normal attacks with A, slashes or kicks or whatever your character has weapons for. And then if you press B or whatever for GameCube, with Symphonia, it was B up, B down, and it'll do the attacks that you set for it. So it's not turn-based. And it's really fast-paced and it's really fun. And it's so deep as well. The battle system just gets better and better with each series? No, sorry. With each game. Okay, Tales of Fantasia, the first one. This is actually the GameCube screen, but you can tell GameCube, Game Boy. You can tell it's pretty old. So, first released in 1995. So that's 17 years ago, as I said. And the character designer for the first Tales game and a few others was Kosuke Fujishima, who also did Oh My Goddess. So you might recognize some of his artwork, and he has a really distinct style, once I have some pictures up. And it was a pretty typical RPG story. There's Kless, who was the main character, and him and his friend Chester go off hunting. They come back, their village is destroyed, their parents and their sisters are dead. And they have to go on an epic quest to defeat the demon lord Daos, who was just obviously out to just destroy things. Or was he? That was one of the things that really set us apart. They kind of had a difference with their villain from the kind of villains that are around at the time. And this one was ported a lot. First came on Super Nintendo. You won't find that in English. Game Boy Advance version came out a few years ago, but it wasn't a very good adaptation. Lots of the translation was weird. Like, one of the main words you'll see that popped up was Yggdrasil, was a really interesting, it was a tree, powerful mana tree, and it was mistranslated as the Great Kangaroo. So, you might want to maybe see if you can find, if you are interested in this, if this is your first one, don't let it put you off the others. It's pretty basic. It is good, but it's just not maybe the best introduction in 2013 to start playing. Yes, it has a very strong connection to a fan favorite, which I'll get to in a minute. And the OVA was by Production IG, and that was who do Shingeki. It was too small. I think it's good, because I think all those things are good. But it's an okay introduction. I would watch it, maybe. The animation is nice, at least. The second one, Tales of Destiny, first released in 1997 on the PS1. And this was the first one that North America got. but it still hasn't made its way to the UK, and I wouldn't get my hopes up unless they put it on the PlayStation Network. But yeah, this one was the first one on obviously Sony console, because Nintendo is Nintendo. Main characters are Stan and Ruti, but they weren't the most popular characters. That would be Leon, who you can kind of tell is like really 90s emo kid with a big dick. And he managed to pull it. But this was the first character set by Mitsumi Nomata, who ended up doing most of the character designs, which is quite interesting because not many women actually are character designers for video games, and the fact that she's stuck with it for this long is pretty amazing. So, and her stuff's really flowery as well. So that's another reason why, like the game case for the West is kind of all like it's got the main character with a sword, kind of like the badass American Kirby thing going on. But oh yeah, it's gotten a port, and since Leon is so popular, he also got a side. They had Tales of Destiny by itself, and then an extra story for Leon as well. See what was happening when he wasn't with the group. So, and he's also so popular that they have character polls every other year, and he's not allowed in it anymore because he keeps winning. So, yeah, that's a testament to him. Okay, Tales of Eternia also came to the US, but because they wanted to keep the connection between Tales of Destiny and this one, so people knew it was a series, they called it Tales of Destiny 2, which gets confusing because it's not actually a direct sequel. This is Tales of Eternia. I think the last PS1 game that came out. You guys got this in the UK, we didn't in the States. But this came out for PSP as well, so I think I've seen it around, so it's also pretty old looking. It looks kind of like Fantasia. But it has a 13-episode anime, which doesn't actually follow the series. So if you want the game, it's like a side, one of the side quests. There are lots of side quests in the game as well. This kind of takes off from there. It has all the main characters in it, though. And, yep, I said that already. It's not very well appreciated. I'm kind of surprised it actually made it outside of Japan a second time. So yeah, if you have a PSP, pick this one up. It's pretty, I really like it. It's kind of quaint. But it's got a really epic story. This is the real Tales of Destiny 2. This didn't come around, and if it actually did, I'm not sure what they would do. Also, actually, yeah, by the way, Tales of Eternia was actually released as Tales of Eternia here, so don't look for Destiny 2. This one the last one more Mitsumi Nomata, who she actually does lots of illustrations. Her artworks are really nice, so I've never seen them before, but for sale. So this one, first one on PS2, but it kept to the 2D graphics, because I think that's kind of around when the PS2 started coming out. And the battle system, kind of the same as the other ones. It didn't start changing too much until the next game. But yeah, the main character, Kyle, is actually the son of Stan and Ruti from the first Tales of Destiny. So this one is like the most kind of direct sequel you could get. Follows the kid, like they run an orphanage, so his kind of brother goes along with him. Find Riala, who's a girl, in a tree, I think. So, I honestly don't know much about this game because it's never gonna come over here. So, and I've never played this, and you can always try to stay away. Import, but I don't have a PSP, and PS2, I'm not messing with my PS2, it's about dead anyway.
Oh, it's quite easy, you just need the flip top lid modification.
Top loader, what?
That's the only one you modified chip it, the whole of it. You put a spring in the flip on the slim one.
Oh, I have a
I've got that. I'm playing a bit on my PS2.
Oh yeah, because that came out in the States. Okay. I also have to learn Japanese a bit better. I don't think I'll get away with all the kanji that's going on in there. But yeah, maybe. I think it's cheaper now. Import. Yeah, we'll probably never see it. Like I said, I don't really know too much about this one. Symphonia! Does anyone remember Symphonia? Awesome! Okay, so some of you have been around for a while, or you have just recently heard of Symphonia because we got a bit of a boom again. So I'm going to go over here to this one, not the block. Oh, Providence is cut off. Venus is cut off. Okay, at least you have a nice view of what Colette, or the main characters of this. And at first, this was the one that, as I said before, 64 got lots of people into the series because it came out on the GameCube, which was really RPG starved until like Gotten Tychos or whatever that game is called came out. So this one, people who had a GameCube only, like me, I just had Nintendo systems at the time. This was one of the only RPGs we could get. So Nintendo put a lot of effort into bringing this one over. I'm not even reading this. They had, I know in the States they had a TV advertisement for it. It was advertised in stores. There were posters. There were magazines, on the back of magazines and everything. So this one got a lot of advertisement, and they made a big deal of getting the localization good. They got some really good voice actors, like Lloyd is voice acted by Scott Menville, who did Robin in Teen Titans. So it's kind of weird, like I watched Teen Titans afterwards, like, this is Lloyd, okay. And Kratos is voiced by Cam Clark, who's done a lot of Cam Clark. I heard that.
Calm down.
And also, Kristen Freeman might have heard of him. He did. He did one of the main characters.
Regal.
Yep, Regal. Who else was popular in that? And oh yeah, the guy who voices Titus or Titus or whatever from Final Fantasy X, he was in that as well. Some big names in the voice acting industry. They really put a lot of effort into it. Oh yeah, Tara Strong. Tara Strong was in it. Yeah, Twilight Sparkle, Timmy Turner. That's awesome. So I think these came out at about the same time in a few months apart, I think, in the US and Europe, and I think Australia got it as well. So everyone was playing this at the same time, and it got a really good reception. This is more popular in the West than it is in Japan. And everything's really popular in Japan. So that's really saying something. This is also, I think it sold 1 million copies worldwide, of over 1 million. So that's the most, so that's the most any of Tales game has sold on its own. And so first team game. Sorry about that. Team games were, I like to separate them by who did the character design. So this was Kosuke Fujishima again, who hadn't done a game since the first one. And Tsumiya Mata kind of does the other one. So there was Team Symphonia, came from this, and then Team Destiny, who worked on Destiny, Eternia, Destiny 2, and a few of the others. So at this point, there were two different like divisions in Namco working on them, so you can kind of tell the differences. Like with Team Symphonia games, they use TP a lot, which is kind of, you use Demon Fang, that costs 5 TP, and then you can just get it back by attacking things. But if any of you play Graces, they have CC, which is, I don't remember what it stands for. But
Chain capacity.
What?
Chain capacity.
Chain capacity, okay. Chain capacity. I think they had that in Destiny. They didn't have that in Eternia, actually. And Destiny 2, which means, like, if you do any attack that's going to take up some of your CC, and the only way you can get it back is by waiting around. So it limits how much you can, like, beat the crap out of things a bit more than this does. It's a lot more fast-paced, I find. Graces, it took me a long time to get used to the battle system after getting used to this one. Okay. So we're still on Symphonia. That's Zelos. He's another really popular character. He's not kicked out of the polls yet, though. He hasn't gotten to that stage, much to his sadness. The characters express how they feel about it, which is really amusing. And, what are we going here? Yeah, really popular in the West, I said that already. And it's coming back! In case none of you knew, it's coming for PS3, an HD version called Tales of Symphonia Chronicles in the West. It was announced at the same time as the Japanese version was announced. So that's going to have an HD Tales of Symphonia, and also the spin-off sequel, which was called Tales of Symphonia Dawn of the New World over here, which didn't get quite as great reception because people were like, oh, it's another Symphonia, but it's not like a mothership title, which I didn't actually explain. I'll get to that in a minute. They had less of a budget, so it was a 30-hour game as opposed to the 80-hour beast that Symphonia is. And people were kind of disappointed with it. But if you take it how it is, it's quite good. And I know people who have started this Tales series with Dawn of the New World, and they're still around. So it can't be that bad. I personally enjoyed it. I always like seeing my favorite characters come back. So that'll be a bundle with the two of them. That's coming out first quarter of 2014. So save up your money. If you haven't played Symphonia yet, I highly, highly recommend it. It's still my favorite out of all the ones I've played. And it's really got so many twists. It's super long, but not in a boring way. There are lots of characters. Like, you don't meet them all right away, so you're always you always have something to look forward to. Especially because he doesn't come in until like 20 hours in because of the big plot twist. And this, actually, this logo is pink because the Japanese got a PS2 version of the game, a PS2 port, which just added a few things like more outfits and some more side quests and things like that. So people kind of put up a rage about it, like, oh, why don't we get more outfits? I want that one. But we're getting it with the PS3 release because they're putting everything in there. So anything you thought you missed before, make sure you have a PS3 ready for this one. Oh yes, and this is the one that is connected to Tales of Fantasia. It's actually set in the same world, but you might not know it at first. And it kind of, like at the end of the game, there's something, they kind of leave it, it seems like a cliffhanger, but if you play Fantasia, you'll be like, ah, that's the connection, I get it now. And I don't know what I'm here. The OVA, I don't remember what that stands for either. Really high budgeted anime series. Well, that's really easy. Okay, original video animation. And it has 11 episodes. It took about, I think the first one, I remember the website coming out in like 2006. And the last episode of the OVA came out last year, right at the end of last year. So you can tell a lot of work has been put into these. The music's amazing. One of my favorite singers does some of the music. And Nana Mizuki actually voices Colette, so she does some singing as well in this one. And yeah, so 11 episodes. The last few are longer than the others. It's a really, really good adaptation of the game, I think. And if you have played the game, it changes things enough. It still makes sense, but it changes things enough for you not to know what exactly is going to happen. And the manga's really good with that as well. Because Symphonia was unique and it had a relationship kind of system going on. So there are some scenes with Lloyd where if you, like there's a famous Blood War scene, which is in one of the opening of the game, where that's, depending on who you let into your room and go outside with, you'll get more scenes with them. And so it kind of affected the ending a little bit as well. So it was, they obviously can't put that in the OVA and the manga. So they switched up a bit, so it didn't really matter too much. But sadly, the relationship system isn't something we've seen much of otherwise. It was in a couple other games, but it didn't really affect the story as much. Because like the extra scenes were voiced and everything. Another big deal that they voiced all of that in the Western game, the Western releases of the games. So a lot of work was put into these ones. But yeah, many popular characters. Zelos is one, Lloyd is one. They both have really popular seiyus as well. And when I don't think they do it so much anymore, but when the games came out in Japan, if you got the special release version, they would come with a DVD of some of the characters talking, like for, I know, what was it, when Abyss came out, they had Zelos talking with one of the characters from that J, and they're like, oh yeah, how's their release, you're finally part of the family, blah, blah, blah. And they do things like that a lot. And now that's kind of moved on to the Tales Festival, where the voice actors, sometimes they will dress up, they'll cosplay their characters on stage and do like proper interactions, and they have the skits, make a little, you'll see in a minute. The skits actually up there, and they'll all be reading the script, and it's really well done. Big in Japan. Alright, Tales of Rebirth is another one. What? Yes, that's one of the memes in there. I only know the memes from this game. There's Claire, which Vague shouts because she gets frozen in the beginning and she like gets kidnapped and everything happens to her. So he's always shouting about her. To the point where in one of the special DVDs they had a couple of the characters do like shouting contests to see who could shout it the loudest, and they won by a lot. So yeah, even the series pokes fun of itself. So they know it's pretty out there. And they did a clever things with the main characters here, because there's Vague and Claire, like Vague and Claire. It took me about 3 years to notice that. But Claire was special in the fact that she was the first unplayable heroine in the game. because she, like I said, at the beginning of the game, she's frozen solid because the characters have like these, he controls, Faye controls ice, I think Mao controls fire, that kid there. And they kind of went out of control and he froze her, and that's not good. So, I don't know where I was going with that. But, yes, it came out on the PS2 and then the PSP, and people thought, oh yeah, maybe we'll get it over. But we didn't, and I think, and many others think that's because it went back to the 2D graphics, despite how hugely successful Symphonia was with its cell shading and the way the battle system changed. Because instead of just being able to go like 2D, they were managed to go other ways. They're still on one line, but they could go all over the place because you could actually turn the camera around and see the 3D characters now. But they went back for some reason, and this, along with Attorney, I think, are two of the most underrated games. You can tell because they both only got PSP releases. Alright, Legendia, which is one that we got in the US, but the UK is probably not ever going to get for some reason. Even though the graphics are really pretty, it's a bit different in the fact that it wasn't developed by the Tales Studio. It was, now I need my script. Actually, you guys probably don't care. So, it was developed by a different studio, and it had different character designer, it had different composer. Usually, Sakurazawa or Sakura something he's one of the really big composers, and he usually does the music. But it's all starting to sound a bit samey. So when Goshina did the soundtrack for this one, it sounded totally different. It was it's only really a Tales game in name, and they do have the skits are done a bit differently. The battle system, while this is 3D, it goes back to 2D lines. So, and it didn't have like multiplayer either, which all the other games have had, because I know a few people who've like done Symphonia with a group of 4 people. But this one you had to play by yourself, but you had 4 people in battle. But whatever. This is also one of the few ones that hasn't had a port. And the character designer this time, and it's the only time he's done it, was Kazuko Nakazawa, who did the designs for Samurai Champloo. So he's got a really distinct style. Again, you can tell, you can't really see here, but the designs in this one, whereas like Fujishima and Inomata have like, especially Inomata have like really flowy outfits with lots of bias and like designs and details. They don't like hug their bodies much. This is Chloe. She's got a tight black bodysuit on, and that's about it, and a jacket. And she's supposed to be a knight. And I guess it kind of worked out for her, I don't know. But I wouldn't want to be one of her after that. Whereas, you can't see Settle, but he's Settle, and who's this guy? And Will. They have these massive gems all over the place, which I don't know how that works either. Yes, Settle has a screw in his shoulder as well. So the designs were a lot different this time around. So it doesn't even really look like a Tales game. I don't think I brought the game with me. So you can see it a bit better. But it's still a really good game in its own right. Another thing that was different about it was that it had character quests, which I haven't actually gotten that far in the game yet, but it kind of focused on the background and everything of one character. So you had the main story, which was about half the game. You spent most of it going after Shirley, who was another unplayable character up until the character quests. You mostly go after her if she gets kidnapped, because she's like the Marinus, which is like a chosen type of thing. And she's, has the fate of the world in her hand. Actually, no, it wasn't the world. This all takes place on a giant boat, which sounds really stupid, and it is kind of strange. But it's actually got like grass and land and temples and everything, and pipes and how you get everywhere, kind of Mario like. But so you spend most of the time chasing around her until there's even a song called Chasing Shirley. It's actually really good. And so that was the first half of the game. And then the second one didn't really have like a long plot line. So the first part is like Settle's character quest, and then you do Will's, because he's got this background with like he has this really young child, and who he had when he was like 18. So it's like, oh, what was going on there? But so So that was another thing that set it apart. Tales of the Abyss. Did any of you start with Tales of the Abyss? Yeah, okay.
Rob has C2.
Sorry?
Rob has C2s in this.
Oh, tier you mean?
No C2.
Tier.
C2.
I didn't catch that last one, but okay. So Tales of the Abyss was back to Kosuke Fujishima and another Team Symphonia game. So it was first released on the PS2. I think I brought this one with me. Oh, I didn't. Oh, I brought Symphonia with me. I didn't show that. But you guys, it looks the same in the UK. But Tales of the Abyss came out, I remember, this was the 10th anniversary title for Japan, so 2005. Oh, that's a long ago. And it came out on October 10th, 2006 in the US. That's why I bought a PS2, because of this game. So worth it. And then later got released on, oh yeah, I have a 3DS. Later got released on 3DS. Which, yeah, so if you have a 3DS and you have a, sorry? Well, that's Exilia that came out. This one came out, it came out first in Europe, because I guess because we had it already in the States. It came out in November of 2011. This was the big comeback for the Tales series after much begging and crying and with threats. We finally started getting it back. So Tales of the Abyss is pretty much, the 3DS is pretty much a direct port of the PS2 version. Actually, the States with their PS2 version got a few extras that didn't come with the Japanese one. So in this one, the Japanese got exactly what we got. And so this is like the complete one if you like thinking about it that way. And it was really difficult to get a hold of at first. I remember I went looking for it. I didn't have a 3DS at the time. But I went looking for it just to see if I could see, like, oh, people buying sales, so a good day. But I couldn't find any. There were 2 games in Cardiff, and neither of them had any. So, no, yes, because some of them didn't get any. Some of them got like 2 or 3 copies. Yeah.
Like twice.
As I understand it, they initially released it in Britain because the market was their sole house to get people that buy that game, and they said, yeah, no, they were afraid to bought them. However, they got sold in 5 months, so we're currently paying them for more, and more didn't come out.
Yeah, because they like totally underestimated how much people would be buying them.
Loads of counties right now in London.
Yeah, I was in New York last year, and I was like, oh, I was in the Nintendo store, they're not gonna have it. They had like millions of copies of Tales of the Abyss. Like, I thought this was rare. Come on, I'm happy, but so they have come back now. I have seen a few copies around in the UK, so it isn't impossible to get it. They just have them on Amazon. I got mine on Amazon once it was finally not like $45, which is abnormal. Usually it's about $35. So. It's available now. I've talked too much about that part. The actual game. Luke, who is the one on the left, was the main character, and he was really interesting, I thought, because he started off, lots of people hated him. Lots of people I know who have played it or watched the anime were like, oh, he's such a brat, he's awful. And I thought that was really refreshing for a main character. So I thought he was hilarious. I loved him. And, but then something happens and he gets a bit more mature. And it's really upsetting, and I never like getting to that part of the game. So we won't get to that. And Tyr, who is apparently like brown-haired Cece, but she pretty much drags Luke into everything with her hyperresonance, because there are phonons, and the phonon frequency is, there's lots of techno babble in Tales of the Abyss, and I don't played it like 3 times, and I still don't catch everything. So if that kind of stuff puts you off, just kind of ignore it. The only ones you need to pay attention to are like, there's the wind phonon, the fire one, so just like the fire element, the wind one, whatever, for battle. But yeah, that's a complaint I've heard a lot. I don't understand what they're talking about. You can see lots of fan art and I'll go like, what's a phonon? And just phonon everything and stuff. So, this was the first game to introduce free run. So even with Symphonia, even though it's 3D, you could go like this if your enemy was over here, you could do that. But with this, you could run around everywhere, which kind of broke the battle system a bit. Because if you were in the Colosseum, for example, which is when you just do like one-on-one battles, but it's like either people or monsters, you could just use free run and run around, and they're never faster than you. So you could just outpace them all the time until can ready yourself to do one of your ultimate attacks and stuff. So that they fixed that later, and they make it more difficult because there was no, like in Graces, if you used free run, you lost your CC. So if you got all the way over here, then you couldn't do anything. So this, it was really broken. But it was something that stuck with the series afterwards. So of course, 3DS already. It has an anime. This is the only Tales game that has a complete anime. And it's by Sunrise, and it's really good adaptation once again. It's kept the feel of the world really well, the characters look good, they have the same voice actors, and except for Ayacon, I think, who was voiced by the girl, or woman who does Pichu. So that was fun. And, oh sorry. So if you can't play the game, the anime once again is a really, really good adaptation. You don't really miss anything by watching it. And I think recently, I know Funimation, which is one of our main companies for bringing over anime, have got it licensed again because it came out and it was the dub only. And once again, this had really, really good voice cast. Like one of my favorite voice actors, Yuri Lowenthal, voiced Luke. And it was, he's so good for me that the point, I can't watch it in Japanese as well because I don't think that he's just my Luke. Like, I can't, it feels like betrayal. So, hopefully maybe we'll get it again, because I don't think the UK got the anime. I'm not too sure. Does anyone know?
No.
No? Okay. I didn't even buy it, so like I'm not gonna, I want to support, but I need Yuri Lowenthal, I'm sorry. So, hopefully it'll come out, because I know that like one of the industries over here picks up a lot of Funimation stuff. Okay, Tales of Innocence was the first one on the DS. At this point, the Tales company was saying, oh yeah, we're going to have a lot of our games on DS now, so I was really happy. Like, oh, there's not region locked. I actually bought this when I was in Japan. And I thought, oh, I'm going to be able to do a lot of them, but that wasn't the case in the end. So this was the first one on DS, and one of the differences about it being on a much smaller card was that it couldn't voice all the things that are normally voiced, which was a bit of a shame. And it was also developed by a different studio, like Legendia was, but this was, I think, it was the same studio that actually did Fantasia way back when, before like Namco was actually had its proper Tales division. So it still had everything going on. This was the first mothership. Mothership meaning all the games I'm introducing now are the main games in the series, because there's these ones and then there are spin-offs like Tales of Symphonia sequel and a few others I'll get to later. So Mothership main series. And it was the first one that had a 0 B rating, and that means like instead of being like an everyone game, I don't remember, like 3+ over here I think it is, it was the first like 12 or 13, 14 rated one. Even though it didn't really, this isn't any darker or any more upsetting than any of the other games. I'm kind of surprised Abyss didn't get it. So this just kind of set the trend. I guess the rating's gone up over there, I'm not too sure. But, so now they're all 0 B, if that's how you say it. And it got a Vita remake recently. It was I think one of the only games on the Vita when I played, at least the only JRPG, because I don't think that's a very successful system even now. So we probably aren't going to get it. But it completely changed the graphics. It added some more staples, because it had room. I think it voiced more things. It added new characters. So that was pretty much just an excuse to get it out again, I think. Oh yeah, that's from the English patch. It has a really good English patch, which you don't even need a DS for. Just you can get one. You can put it on the R4 card. So it's really good. They translate absolutely everything. So if you do want to play this one, you can. Or you could be like me and spend like 5,400 yen on it and then realize you don't even need that to play the patch. Which is what I thought, so. Oh well. Vesperia! I don't remember. I'm cosplaying for Vesperia right now. As well. So this is the art that came out when it was first being revealed. And it came out on the Xbox 360 2008. 260, yeah, sorry. I'm a professional. So, this, I can't believe I did that. I did so many times that it just blanked. Oh well. And, I'm really embarrassed now. So 360, this was a big deal because the 360 wasn't, and still isn't to my knowledge, that popular in Japan. So when this was announced, it was kind of like, oh, okay, now I have to go buy a 360 because, you know, it's a Tales series. They're going to put more things on the 360. That didn't happen. This is the only one, the first and only one that came on to the 360. And it was the US's 10th anniversary game. So it came out actually a few days after it came out in Japan. So that was a pretty big deal. And it had Troy Baker was Yuri, and Sam Rizzo was
Calm down.
So this is another one they put lots of effort into. I'm kind of surprised because I think between, it was Abyss, yeah, came out in 2006, this came out a couple years later. So it wasn't like there was a big, you know, roar for Tales still. We were kind of okay because they'd only been a couple years. But they made a big deal of the 10th anniversary, which was awesome. I think it got delayed in the UK though. I know I didn't see it in France for a while after.
Didn't get that much delay, but it was really badly shipped over here, so you were lucky to get a copy for the first few years of that country.
Oh, sounds like the Abyss
You're
situation.
still lucky to get a copy.
Yeah, because I was
Still
looking
trying
for.
to find a copy.
Yeah, I was looking for it on eBay because my roommate's boyfriend had it on sale. Like, oh, but I'm not paying £60 for a game that is
And
used.
the download version for 20.
Do they have it downloadable?
Then the downloadable version for 20 on.
Oh.
Sell you a silver copy for 50. I mean,
I'll play it on my 260. For Vesperia?
Yes.
Oh, that's shocking. I remember they said they were having a reprint. That was like 3 years ago though.
That
Huh.
was the thing they did that though because of how big Azealia did in this, how well Azealia did in this country.
Yeah, Exilia's been, like, they sold out of the collector's edition for reading stuff.
That made war.
Yeah, it was like limited 10,000 copies. I got mine at the first. I was like, oh, God, 10,000 people are gonna get it. I was like, wait, it's the Tales series. Like, gonna be like maybe, you know, half of that sold, and it did get sold out. So I don't know if it was 10,000 in the like in Europe, and or 10,000 for each company. Because I was in Spain at the time. They're like, oh, you want to order through the Spanish one? No, I do not want to have like El Judo. I can't be dealing with that. So I don't know if it was 10,000 per thing, but even so, I think it might have been 10,000 in North America for like Canada and all that as well. That's really, it's coming back, I'm so happy. Okay, anyway, that's what we're not talking about today. Vesperia, 360, big deal, because, yeah, everyone, they came out with a special version of it in Japan, like, you know, a bundle, and people were like, oh, okay, I'll get it. But then about, I think it was almost even less than a year later, possibly, it came out on PS3, because, you know, the 360 just isn't a popular console in Japan. They want to appeal to Japan. So there was a lot of uproar about this. Like, the Japanese fans were posting pictures of their 360 games broken in half, because they were so pissed off about this. So, and if you ever see a Namco representative, like I know at Ayacon last year, Holly was here. Holly was there and she was talking about the Tales series, and then someone behind me was saying, I'm going to ask about Vesperia PS3. I was like, don't, because they get so much crap about it, especially on the Facebook page. When Abyss was announced, like, oh yeah, this is out, everyone's like, yay, happy, and then like, where's Vesperia PS3? Exilia's coming out, where's Vesperia PS3? Exilia 2's coming out, where's no, we're not getting it as much as I would like it. It's not going to happen. And the reason that another reason besides the Japanese fans being all upset about it, was that people like to call, at least I got a 360 right. People like to call Vesperia 360 out of bitterness. They call it the beta version, because there was a character called Patty that was like, she was an actual main character in the PS3 one. And there's a scene in like some room at the top of somewhere, and if you open a drawer or something like that, there's something that says, oh, this hat belongs to the ... So that, oh, she was in there, she was planned, but they didn't put her in, this is a beta. Oh, and Flynn's not playable, it was that guy. They were like rivals, and they bumped into each other a lot. Sorry?
Till the very end, you get 5 minutes to break the weekend.
Oh yeah, he does join the party briefly in the 360 one, but not enough to call him like a playable character, really. So we were like, oh, you got Flynn, you got Patty. This is beta, so. But in truth, besides tagging, who I think is it's kind of weird to shove a new character because she didn't even appear in the first one. So besides her, playable Flynn, and some new costumes, which were DLC anyway, there wasn't much difference. So, like, I'm still really jealous of everyone who could play 360. I debated with myself for 3 years whether to get a 360 or a PS3 for Tails, but PS3 won in the end. And now we got 4 localized Tails games for the PS3. So if you were like me and debating, PS3 only wins. But I got everything. Oh yes, Yuri is really popular. Yes. Yuri cosplayer.
Over here!
So he is super popular. He, along with Leon, is kicked out of the contest, the popularity contest, because the two of them just kept winning. Actually, at the Tails Festival this past year, they had the voice acting for the two of them. Like in their kicking out ceremony, they had a cake that with both the characters on. I was like, goodbye, you're not in this design the contest anymore. So, yeah.
Have they done a poll between the two of them? Find out which one is the most popular?
They should. I don't know who I vote for. What you want to do? I'm not counting. Like, wave of hand, what should we? Does anyone know both of the characters? See, not worth it. Okay. Oh, okay, I'll get to that later as well. And, so yeah, Yuri is super popular, not just like in the Tails series, but he was in Project Crossstone, I think it's pronounced, that came out recently. He was in it with Estelle, who was the leading lady, and Flynn, who was also the leading lady. Because people did, they're like, who's the actual heroine? Because he has more to do with Flynn than Estelle in the end, so. But they're both in it as well. I think Yuri's been in something else too. I don't remember.
One of the tales where they pull most characters together.
Oh, there's lots of them are in that one.
Yeah.
Versus, yeah, I think Rita was in that as well. Rita, that's a cute one. Or Rita cosplayer. And so yeah, he like transcends the Tails series. Well, I have no idea how we're doing. 10 minutes? Okay. Almost at the end. Tales of Hearts was the last one that came out on DS. Along with along with Tempest, which wasn't well received. I don't have time to get to that though. This one is a shocker that we didn't get it out in the UK and the US and everything, because they actually did a version that was CG, because they're like, oh, you know, the West likes, you know, the Final Fantasy-esque designs better. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Oh. So they did 2 versions, and sadly the anime one was a lot more popular than the 3D one. So you can actually still get copies of this one pretty cheaply, but the other one, not so much. And I don't have it. So it's the last one to use 2D models as well. Once again, Inamata, you might be able to tell. Grace is up! This is the new contact. This actually first came out on the Wii in 2009. I remember the trailer just had Asbel walking around, and then we found out like 9 months later everything else about it. There's big people like begging Namco, please release Graces, we need another tale, because this came out last year. The only one that came out before that was the main one was Vesperia, so that's a 4-year gap. We were all kind of like, we need air, we need tales. And it was the only Team Destiny since the team reformed to come out in the West, and also the last, because the teams don't exist anymore, because Namco merged. And I imagine most of you know about Graces, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that one. But originally for Wii, you might not have known that. And this one, the PS3 port for this one was okay, because they voted, they wanted this to come on PS3. So it had an extra 10-hour series. More Richard, which made me happy.
Yes!
Exilia! Okay. So if you didn't know about Exilia, yes, Exilia, I recently got this. It was on me. I'm really excited the game came out. This came out last Friday over here. So if you haven't gotten it, get it. I think they might still have the collector's edition as well, which has like an art book, a CD. It doesn't have the Neo figure. I got that one. That was the 10,000 one. The 10,000 limit one. So what's special about this one, you can see over there, you had to choose your main character. These were both the main characters. It wasn't like main hero, main heroine, everyone has to be saying, Mila is a badass. Okay? So she doesn't need Jude saving her at all. I think it's mostly the other way around, yeah. So it's mostly, they do follow the same path mostly, but like in the beginning I chose Jude, so you have him wandering around the school until he meets Mila. Like you see, I have no idea what Mila was doing at the time that Jude was like trying to find his professor. So there are a few things that you need to play it twice to get the gist of everything. I've heard some people say, oh, Mila's side explains more, but Jude also explains this, so it doesn't really matter. And this was the 15th anniversary one. Both character designers, both Fujishima and Inomata, were the ones that so I think, yeah, Jude was Fujishima. You can kind of tell because he likes his bias by him a lot. Tails cosplay all the bias by him. And Mila was done by Inomata. So they split the cast, they split the, like one of the villains and one of the, I'm not sure what she is, like a fairy spirit person. They split the designs for those as well. This last I checked sold 800,000 copies in Japan alone, which for Tails, even though it's big, it's also quite a big deal. It came out last week. So if you were planning on getting it, get it. I haven't played much of it yet, but it's gorgeous. I want to live in Fenlong. Do I have anything else on this? Exilia 2! Okay, this, yes, another direct sequel. The second one, and this came out last year. It was announced at the Tales Festival there, after much like the really vague advertising or things about it in the magazines. And this was the main characters, Luther and Elle, and also Luther's brother, Julius, I'm not sure, were designed by Daigo Okamura, who does lots of the background characters for Tales. That's kind of awesome that he finally got to do a main game, because he did Emil and Marta from the Symphonia sequel as well. And this is different because Luther is the silent protagonist, and he also, the way you can make him talk is by making choices, and I do determine the ending. This has multiple endings from what I know. And even just like small things can change everything pretty drastically. So this is a really new take on the series. So worth getting because it's coming out next year. It was announced last month at Japan Expo that we are going to be getting this in the West. So that's a big deal. Exilia's not even out and we're getting the sequel. That's how well Exilia has been selling. So I really hope that you stick with the series now because I think we're going to be getting a lot of it. So I think it's like second or third quarter because we don't want it to clash with Symphonia. So that'll be coming out soon. I'm not going to get to all the staples in the escort titles. But here's a bunch of the escort titles, like versus we were talking about. It's like Super Smash Bros. But with all the Tails characters. Twin Brave was a strange one. Natty Kitty Dungeon at the bottom there was one of the really old ones that's kind of turned into its own fandom, I think. Tales of the World came out actually on PSP in the West. I know that quite a few people I know only even play Tales of the World, but it's got a few characters, got like Leon. Yuri wasn't existing yet, so he's not here. But
I think it's the World 2.
yeah, there's 3 of them now. There's probably going to be a 4th one because inside of the canon knows it might be. I think I'm running over here. Okay, staples, can't get to all of them, but that is a Mystic Art / Hyobi. Hyobi, I can't say that. Which are, if you, in certain circumstances, they made it easier as the games went on to access them, but they're like the ultimate attacks. Like in Abyss, there are 2 of them. In Symphonia, only Lloyd, Venus, and Colette had them, and you had to have like ridiculous things, like Lloyd had to have less than 5% and this weapon equipped in this much time left in battle. God knows what.
Let's just happen to random.
Yeah, Colette's was random. And TP and CC, I mentioned already. The battle system, I said, is high level. Oh, I got this right. Cameo battles. So some characters from other games will come in the Colosseum, which I explained before, and you can battle different characters. So, in I think it was Abyss, they had Reed from Tales of Eternia, they had Mint from Fantasia.
The secret boss in Vesperia. Oh my
There's
god.
And okay, titles and skits are really big. You don't have to get to these ones. So the skits are separate conversations that go around, happen while the characters are walking around. If you miss these, you really I don't know why you're playing the game because this is where most of the interaction comes from, and Tales is like big on the characters. So they're really funny most of the time. Like they're serious when it needs to be. But in New York, it's really nice. Now they're voiced. They didn't used to be voiced in the West because it costs too much money. But since Vesperia, they've been totally voiced. And the titles, like with the Judgment one, that's practice is like really scrappy outfit thing. They all have different outfits they can wear. That started with Symphonia. So that's just something that, but now with Exilia, there's only 4 costumes in game, which sucks. So you have to like do DLC, so you have to pay more money. At least they're not too much, but sorry, I'm really rushing a lot now. Yeah, the costumes. You can, in Grace, they also had attachments, and in Vesperia as well, I think. And it can make really serious situations really ridiculous. Like, I think one of the ones in game is the watermelons that you put on your head.
Yeah.
Except for Malik, it was on his head.
Oh, those villagers as well.
But,
I think
yeah.
there was one had on those as well. I think Rivers had on those as well.
I don't remember. There were tons. I always had it on Pascal's head. But you see, like, the school outfits are pretty standard. They also started having cameo costumes, so that's Sophia's Anis from Tales of the Abyss, and Sophia's Miku, which you get. Japan has those, and I don't think we're gonna get them because of copyrights and stuff. I'm not gonna get to the cutscenes. The Tales merchandise. There's tons of it. I got some of it here. Actually, one of my friends went to the store where they sell all of this stuff. Some of it's ridiculous, like curry. And do you think we have time for you to talk about it a bit? Okay, yeah, just like show off the country and stuff. You can see there's drama CDs. That's the thing at the store. They're actually selling something similar to this in the dealer's room. And yeah, you want one? Okay, sure. Okay.
I went to the Tales of store like last week because I was in Japan for the BTS, and the majority of the stuff up here, aside from the drama CDs and the Tales of Friends, we don't actually get in stores very often. The most popular stuff that they have in the stores is things like T-shirts and like the sort of Pokemon coin figures, like the mini Tales of Friends is pretty much the only figures that they had, and then they have little bits and pieces like this that
Rare new plushies. You might not ever see one of these again. This is from Tales of the Abyss.
The majority of the merchandise in the store was kind of staple, but every time that I went in, they had something like new and different. So I think a lot of the merchandise that they had while I was there was actually like spin-off stuff from the Tales Festival, which only happened like quite recently, it was sort of last month. So a lot of the bits and pieces that normally, like these are normally exclusive to Tales Festival, they sort of had like filtering and stuff like that. But the store itself is really cool. It's not very big, but all the merchandise that they have is like pretty much exclusive.
All Tales.
They have things like necklaces, and they have like actual jewelry.
Oh yeah, some of the jewelry is like carat gold, of like pretty high carat gold.
Yeah, they had the gold cast Leon Magnus necklace for 31,000 yen, which is about £240, I think. But a lot of the stuff, like I said, is just left over from the Tales Festival. But if you do go to Japan, it's in Akihabara and it's in the Kia store. And since I went recently, and obviously knew that this panel was happening, there's some stuff to give away, which is exclusively from the store, so hopefully you'll enjoy it.
Okay, so yeah, hopefully you have also been listening. I thought I'd have time for like questions to be asked, but you can find me outside if you really want to know things. But we have actual questions that I'm going to ask you. If you get it right, you can pick something from over here. I think actually I want some of these first. I'm going to leave these open. Don't take that. I want some of that. Okay, so who has been listening? Can you actually help me? Because I can't see. All right. Does anyone remember what a mothership title is? Don't call them. They know all these things. Okay. Who's that? Okay, Kristen. Yeah, the main games come and choose your cards. Don't pay money. Okay, thank you. Can someone name, I know I didn't go through them too well, but does anyone know one of the 2 or 3 series staples? Okay, you're right. Yep, those are all good. What's something a bit more difficult?
Ja, den är mer vad kan man
What was the first 3 Tales games?
Like I knew.
Aww.
Sorry.
I had Tales of Contemporary, Tales of Destiny.
The first 3D one.
Oh, best 3D one.
Anyone? Okay. Gina, yes. Symphonia, hey, what's your name? You get something. What's another one? Can we name 2 ports? Like no, they were written up there, so I hope you were reading it. 2 ports, 2 different systems that Fantasia was on. Okay, yeah. Nope. Fantasia. Yeah? Yes, there we go. Good. So a few things left? Okay. Who was Yuri's rival / childhood friend? Who? Someone all the way in the back there. Thank you.
You are!
And for people who have actually played Vesperia, what is the main guild called that Yuri and Carol are part of? Red? Yeah. You got it. Okay. Do I have time for a couple more? 2 or 3 more questions? 2 more questions. Okay. How old is the Tales series in the West? You right there in the black.
15 years.
Sorry?
15.
Excellent. And last one. Which one should I pick? What was the first Tales game called? I can't see. Raven.
Fantasia.
Yes. Excellent. You get something.